Hello students, I extend my heartiest welcome to you all to today's session that is based on financial accounting. So today's session will cover the topic that is rectification of errors. So what is the rectification of error and what kind of the errors we are talking about? These errors at the time of entering the transaction in the books of accounting, you left or you made. So that time it is compulsory to find the error because the trial balance and the other financial statements like income statement, balance sheet are based on the balances taken from the trial balance, and if the trial balance doesn't match, so that time there is a mistake, there is a error in the ledger posting or journal entries. So if you want to give the accuracy to your accounting books, that time it is compulsory for the accountant that there should be no error. So it should be avoided, right? But sometimes you see that when you are entering the transactions, business transactions in the form of journal entries in the books of accounting, so few mistakes or few errors take place. So we have to remove those errors. We have to locate those errors in the books, and we have to apply some journal entries, or there are some methods that we have to remove those errors from the books of accounting. So exactly what is the method, what kind of the errors we are talking? So in the previous lecture already we have discussed about the errors, different kinds of the errors. So today we are not discussing about the different types of the errors, but we have to solve the numerical questions so that the students have the skill to remove the errors or to make the entries in order to correct the errors, right? So rectification of errors is that topic which is related to the correction of errors or rectification of the errors which were made during the journal entries during the ledger posting, right? So before the trial balance, if there was the error, so you will find that trial balance is not balanced with the total. Maybe the debit side is excess in comparison of the credit side or vice versa. So today just have a look on the numerical question, and what kind of the transactions are there, and what kind of the errors, or you can say the different transactions may be wrongly entered in the book. So we have to rectify today, right? Okay, so for that purpose we have to approach to the Excel, right? And as you see on the screen, there is a particular question, and from very first transaction, right? That is the credit sales to around rupees 7,000 were not recorded. So rectification of errors. Basically, when you are going to rectify the errors, okay, so there are three columns: the correct, wrong, and rectified. Okay, it means three entries you have to make here. So the very first entry, that is the correct, that is the column correct, and second column is the wrong, and third one is rectified. It means first of all you should make the correct entry. You should focus that exactly when the transaction is given to you. So what entry should have been uh, posted or should have been maintained, okay, in the books of accounting. So that is the correct entry, and wrong entry refers to that entry which was made, okay. So supposedly any account was wrongly debited or wrongly credited, so that is the particular error, so we have to rectify. So finally we have to go to the rectified column, and we have to write here, we have to mention the rectified entry, okay. So what is the particular, what is this way? The way is that you should think that exactly as per the transaction, what was the given as per the transaction, you have to think that exactly what entry should be made in the books, or in the you can say that during the transaction exactly what entry should be made, okay. Now wrong, it means the entry which was entered wrongly, so you have to mention the wrong entry, and on the basis of this information that correct entry and wrong entry you have made, So the rectify entry would be made over there. Okay. So the very first thing is that you have to make the correct entry. So one by one we have to consider all the transaction as given in this question. The very first is that credit sales to Arun rupees 7,000 were not recorded. So you have to make the correct entry. Okay. What is the correct entry as per the rules of the accounting, as per the rules of the journal entries? The credit sales to Arun was not recorded. Okay. So was not recorded or were not recorded would be considered in the wrong. But exactly what is the transaction? The transaction is credit sales to Arun rupees 7,000. Okay. So correct entry should be there that Mr. Arun or Arun debit, because as per the rules, who is receiver, right? Credit sales to Arun, Arun is the receiver of the goods, so you are selling the goods to Arun on credit, and the amount is rupees 7,000, so you have to mention here 7,000. And credit sales to Arun. Okay, so to sales account, to sales account 7,000. Okay. So I think there is no any doubt to make this entry that what is the transaction credited credit sales to Arun. So you are debiting this Arun, and sales account would be credited by 7,000. And now the wrong entry is that it was not recorded. Basically it is the case of the omission that a particular transaction took place in the business organization and you did not record in the books. So this is assumed that no entry was entered in the books. So wrong entry, it means there was no entry. Okay, so just give a dash, there was no entry, or you can write over here that no entry. Okay, no entry was entered. Okay. And what is the rectified entry? Rectified entry means Arun was debit to sales account, and this entry was the correct entry, and because you have not entered this entry now, so you have the opportunity to rectify by writing this entry again, that Arun debit, right, and to sales account. Okay. And we have to mention the amount, that is 7,000 and rupees 7,000. Okay. So I think it is the proper understanding you have right now by making this transaction in the books, because the case was that particular transaction took place in the business organization, but no transaction, no entry was made for that transaction. So how will you correct it? How will you rectify? You have to make this entry. Okay. And second transaction is that credit purchases from Mahesh rupees 1,000 were not recorded. So again, this is the case that credit purchase from Mahesh, you bought the goods from Mahesh on credit, right? So entry was not recorded. So exactly what should be the correct entry? The correct entry is that purchase account debit rupees 1,000, okay, and to Mahesh rupees 1,000. And because no entry was made, okay, no entry was made or entered in the books. So you have to make this entry again. Purchase account debit rupees 1,000 and to Mahesh rupees 1,000. Now come to the next transaction, that is credit sales to Arun were recorded as rupees 700, right? So credit sales to Arun, the transaction is credit sales to Arun. So what is the correct entry, or what should be the correct entry? The correct entry is Arun debit rupees 7,000 and to sales account 7,000. And now we have to focus on the wrong entry which was entered in the books, okay, by the accountant that time when the transaction took place in the organization. So 700 rupees was recorded in the Arun account and sales account, right? So there was a particular entry wrongly, right? A wrong entry was made over there. What is the wrong entry? That Arun debit 700 and to sales account 700. Okay, so now this is the time to rectify this entry. So you have to focus on correct entry and wrong entry. So correct entry should be there. Arun debit to sales by 7,000. So debit, a particular account was debited. Okay. You are not making the error in the Arun account or sales account, but in the amount. Okay. So the account should be debited, Mr. Arun, and the account which is to be credited is the sales account. But you see that there is a mistake, there is an error in the amount of the transaction. So amount should be 7,000 and you are writing 700. So now what is to be done? The correct entry or the rectified entry should be that you have to make Arun debit and to sales account, right? So what is the amount you have to write over here? Because by 700 you reduced, okay, there should be 7,000 and you are making the entry with rupees 700. So how much the particular amount should be more, right, in the debit side? So you see that 6,300, 6,300. So I think you developed this understanding that you should think that exactly what is the transaction. Transaction was that you made the credit sales to Arun by for rupees 7,000, and the entry was made. There was not the case that you did not make any entry. No entry was entered in the books of accounting, but you made the entry, or the accountant who was writing the books of accounting mentioned that Arun debit to sales account. Okay, so the particular amount 700 was written over there in the Arun account, and 700 was posted in the sales account, but exactly the amount should be there 7,000. So there was less amount by rupees 6,300, so it should be added in the Arun account and sales account. So this is the rectified entry. Okay, and when we see the next transaction, that goods returned to Charu rupees 4,000 were recorded as 400. So again, this is the case of the error in the amount of a particular transaction. So very first thing is that you have to consider that what should be the correct entry in the books. So goods returned to Charu. Okay, so Charu is the receiver of the goods. So Charu debit by rupees 4,000 and to goods return. Okay, so what kind of the goods was returned? It means when we bought the good, okay, already you can say that previously we had purchased the goods and now we are returning that goods to Charu. So Charu debit to purchase return or sales return, purchase return, because return was made which for the goods that was purchased earlier. So to purchase account or purchase return account, right, to purchase return account. So there should be entry, this correct entry, and the wrong entry was entered, that the amount was mistaken. Okay, so the entry was the same, that Charu debit by 400 and to purchase return 400. So what should be the rectified entry? We have to make it that Charu debit, right? It was less, right? Less amount was there. So it was reduced by rupees 3,600. Okay, and to purchase a return account rupees 3,600. So I think you learn it. Okay, and now the next transaction is that credit sales to around rupees 5,000 were recorded as rupees 5,200. Okay, just let us see credit sales to Arun. So the correct entry should be Arun debit rupees 5,000. Okay, and to sales, because credit sales is there, to sales account rupees 5,000, and the wrong entry was entered, or the transaction was recorded by rupees 5,200. Okay, so Arun debit rupees 5,200. It means by 200 it was increased, the Arun account was increased to sales account 5,200. It means sales account was also increased by 200. Now you have to rectify this entry. So as you consider this particular transaction, you see that 5,000 should be written over there, right? And the accountant entered 5,200. So 2,000 was the excess amount which was entered in the Arun as well as sales account. So what is the method? Because you are not allowed to make any cutting in the account. So there is only the option with you that you can make anything credit or debit, right? It means something is debit in excess, so you have to make that account credit, and if something is excess in credit side, so you have to make it debit side. Okay, so plus minus is not there. Just like you have to make the entry debit or credit. Okay, so Arun is debited. See, right? With more amount, it means the 200 was the amount which was in excess of 5,000. Okay, so you have to make Arun as a credit, and sales account would be debit over there, right? So sales account, you have to make it in the deposit side to sales account, or sales account debit, right? And by rupees 200, and Arun was debit by 200, right? In access, so you have to make Arun account credit to Arun 200. Okay, let's think about it, that exactly what was the matter, that Arun should be debited by 5,000. It was written over there 5,200, and sales account should have been credited by 5,000, but you wrote or you entered this entry or you posted in the sales account rupees 5,200. So both the account are having the excess amount, right, in the debit and credit side. So Arun was debited by 5,200. Now, in order to rectify this entry, you have to reduce the amount. How will you reduce in the account? You have to make it credit, because it was debited by 200 in excess. Now you have to reduce this particular account by making this debit side as a credit side. Okay, so Arun should be credited, right, in this particular rectification. So sales account debit by 200, and to Arun account, or to Arun rupees 200. In such a way you are correcting, or you are rectifying the particular transaction. Okay, and the next transaction is that credit sales to Himanshu rupees 300 were recorded in the purchase book. So the very first thing is that first line, right? Credit sales to Himanshu. So Himanshu is the party. Okay, Himanshu should be debit by 300, and credit sales. Okay, so to sales account rupees 300, and the wrong entry was posted or recorded in the purchase book. It means now you have to assume that the transaction which was related to sales was written as a, that it was purchased, okay, in the purchase book. So if you think that you are buying the goods from Himanshu, or you have to assume that you were buying the goods from Himanshu, so exactly what should be the entry? Purchase account debit rupees 300 and to Himanshu rupees 300. So as you see that Himanshu should be debit, but it was credited by 300. So now in order to rectify this entry, you have to make Himanshu debit, right? And sales account, which was not written over there, but it should have been written in the books or in the journal entry. So now you have to make to sales account. And the purchase account was debited wrongly. Now what is the way, what is the option you have? You have to make this account credit. Okay, so you have to make this account credit to purchase account. Now it is to be focused, or you have to pay your attention towards the amount which is to be entered in the rectified entry. Okay, because sales account, okay, just consider the sales account first. The sales was to be written by 300, okay, because you did not mention sales account by 300, so you have to write 300, right? And purchase account was debited, so you have to reduce this particular debit, right, by writing in the credit side this particular amount. So purchase account should be 300 in the credit side. Okay, let's consider again that sales account was to be credited, but you did not make it credit. Now this is the option with you that you have to write this account in the credit side. You have to make sales account credited by rupees 300, and the purchase account which was wrongly debited, now you have to make it credit. So to purchase account rupees 300, and Himanshu, okay, just focus that Himanshu should be debited over there by 300, but you are not mentioning, and instead you wrote in the credit side. Okay, so now you have to post this entry by double amount. Okay, means 600. So entry will match debit and credit side. So once again, we should consider this transaction. It is very, very important that the particular sale was made to Himanshu. It means there was a credit transaction. So Himanshu should be debit and to sales account. Okay, this was the entry which was correct entry, and it should have been posted in the in the journal. But now you see that purchase account debit to Himanshu rupees 300. It was wrongly this entry was entered in the books. Now what is the way you have to correct? That Himanshu should be debit by 600 and to sales account rupees 300 and to purchase account rupees 300. Okay, because the sales account was to be credited, but it was not mentioned. So this is the time to mention, and purchase account which was wrongly debited. Now you have the way to credit. Okay, so purchase account would be credited by 300, and Himanshu should be debit now in the rectification 600. Next transaction is credit purchases from bridge rupees 400 were recorded in sales book. Okay, so purchase entry we have to make purchase account debit rupees, what is the amount? 400, and because this is the credit transaction and the party name is given to you, so to bridge, right, and the amount is 400. Okay, that was the correct entry. It should be made by the accountant, but wrong. What is the particular transaction? That credit purchase from bridge rupees 400 were recorded in the sales book. You have to make the entry of purchase, but as you see the transaction was mistakenly, right, entered in the sales book. It means the sales account was credited. It was assumed that you sold the goods to Bridge. Okay, so Bridge debit by 400 and to sales account by 400. Okay, so this is the very new transaction for you, that the entry should be made for the purchase, but you assume that the transaction was of sales, so you made the entry that bridge debit to sales account. Now you have to correct this entry or rectification entry, right? So purchase account debited, okay, and you did not make this account debited, so now you have to make it debit to purchase account rupees 400, and the sales account which was credited, wrongly credited, right? So what option you have, that you have to make this amount account credit or debit, right? Okay, 400. And now bridge account, okay, you bought the goods from bridge and bridge was not entered in the credit, but wrongly you make this account debit, okay. So what option you have, you have to make this account, the bridge account, credit by double amount, okay, to bridge 800. So what is the purpose? The purpose is to rectify, okay, rectify this particular wrong transaction which was entered wrongly in the books of accounting. So you see that purchase account was to be debited, but because you did not enter the purchase account, you did not post the amount in the purchase account in the debit side. So you have to correct it by making this account debit right now. And because the sales account was wrongly credited, and in order to correct it, you have to make sales account debit, okay. And what is the case with bridge? The bridge account, right, the parties account should be in the credit side, but you did in the wrongly in the debit side. So what correction? The correction is that the bridge account should be credited by 800. So 400 would be cancelled, right, automatically, because you wrote in the debit side and now you are writing in the credit side 800 rupees. So 400 which was debited wrongly automatically would be credited, automatically would be corrected by writing 400 in the credit side, right? And 400 which was left in credit side because you sold, you purchase the goods, okay, you purchase the goods for 400 from bridge. So entry should be there, that purchase account debit to bridge. So bridge account should have been credited, but you did not credit this particular account, so now you have to make it with the amount rupees 800, okay. And goods returned from Isha rupees 2000, okay, this is the entry, that goods returned from Isha rupees 2000. So if someone is returning the goods, so that is the sales return, okay, and sales return is the debit, okay. So correct entry is that sales return account debit rupees 2000, and to the party name is given, right, Isha, to Isha rupees 2000. And now we have to focus on the wrong transaction, okay, wrong entry. So were recorded in the purchase book. It means it was assumed that you made the purchases from Isha. So what entry was made? Purchases account debit rupees 2000 and to Isha. Right. What is the amount? Rupees 2000. So what should be the rectified entry? Okay, just focus that on the first correct entry, right? The correct entry should be their sales return account. So this is my question to you, that did you mention the sales return account in the debit side in the books? No. So you have to make it debit sales return account debit right? 2000 rupees. And Isha was credited, yes, okay, or not? Yes, Isha was credited over there. So there is no need to mention Isha again because already it was done. So it is the correct. Okay. But the purchase account was debited by 2000. So you have to correct it by writing or in the credit side to purchase purchases account rupees 2000. So just have a look on it that sales return account debit to Isha. That was the correct entry which should have been made by the accountant, and but the wrongly entered the purchase account debit, okay, by 2000, and Isha was to be credited, and it was mentioned in the credit side 2000 in account of Isha, so it is correct. There is no need to correct this Isha account or to touch this Isha account, but you have to rectify it by writing sales return account debit, okay, because that was the correct entry and it should have been made. So now this is the option with you that you should write sales return account in the debit side, and the purchase account was wrongly debited. So what is the way you will make it correct? The purchase account should be credited now in the rectification, okay. So two purchases account in the rectification entry by 2000, writing 2000, okay. So this is the correction. And now the next transaction is that rupees 2000 paid for furniture purchased has been debited to purchase account. So as I told you earlier that there should be difference. Okay, you have to differentiate between the assets and purchase, because the goods which was bought for the resale purpose, that is mentioned as a purchase. But if you are buying some assets, okay, or you are making some capital expenditure, you are buying some assets for a longer period and the huge amount is invested over there. So basically what is the particular way to differentiate between the purchase or the assets account? Because if you are buying the assets, the tangible assets you are buying, right, you can see, you can touch those assets, so you have to mention in the asset side. And if you are buying some goods for the purpose of sale, so the sale or resale, so that is the purchase account. It means it is the you can say you have to write in the trading account in the income statement. It is not the particular asset, right? So you have to differentiate between the purchase and the assets, okay. You are buying the assets, okay, so you are receiving the asset, but that is not the purchase, right? Because the purchase is mentioned in the trading account, and the purchase is assumed for generation the revenue. So you are not generating the revenue directly, okay. So it is not related to the production, or it is not to be mentioned in the trading account, okay. So basically, assets is to be written in the asset side. So what is this? This is the transaction where you have to focus on the furniture. Furniture was purchased, and now you are mentioning in the purchase account. Okay, so now you can understand the particular case given in the question. The two rupees 2000 paid for furniture purchase has been debited to purchase account. So exactly what should be the correct entry? The entry should be that furniture account debit rupees 2000 and to cash account rupees 2000, okay. And what was the wrong entry? Wrong entry was related to purchase, right? Purchase account debit 2000 and to cash account. So what do you see? The exact thing is that furniture was purchased, so entry should be there, furniture account debit to cash account, but you are mentioning purchase account debit. So you have to make the furniture account debit, okay, in the rectification entry furniture account debit, and purchase account was wrongly debited, so you have to mention to purchase account and the amount is 2000, and the cash account was intact because the cash account should have been credited in the books rupees 2000, and already it was done, right? To cash account rupees 2000, so there is no need to touch this cash account again. But because the furniture account was not entered by 2000 rupees in the books, so you have to mention it now. And purchase account was wrongly debited by 2000, so you have to correct this error by writing in the credit side or by making this purchase account credit by rupees 2000. Okay, so this was the transaction, and the next transaction is rupees 3000 paid to Mohan for salary were debited to his personal account. Okay, so this is mention worthy that if any salary is paid, any expenses is made, so that particular transaction should be made in the name of the expenses, right? Or by mentioning the name of the expenses, the account should be debited. But exactly what happened that you treated as a personal account of Mohan, so Mohan was debited over there in place of the salary account. So what correct entry should be made? The correct entry was that salary was debited, okay, or rupees 3000 were paid to Mohan for salary. You are paying the amount to Mohan for salary, so salary was the expenses, and it should be mentioned over there that salary account debit by rupees 3000 and to cash account rupees 3000. But what happened that you mentioned the name, you took the entry, you took the amount in his personal account. It means it was stated that the amount was paid to Mohan, right? And the salary was not considered, the expenses were not considered at the time of posting the entry into the books. So now you have to consider that the wrong entry was made, that Mohan debit. Okay, Mohan debit rupees 3000 and to cash account rupees 3000. Okay, so what about the rectification of error? It means salary account debit by rupees 3000 and the Mohan account was debited. So in order to correct, in order to rectify, you have to make Mohan's account credit. Okay, to Mohan rupees 3000. Is there any doubt? I think you should have no doubt. Sorry. And the next transaction is rupees 1000 paid for proprietor's bill were debited to sundry expenses account. It is very important, okay, to see that if any proprietor's bill is there, so that is the case of drawings, and drawings account should be debited over there, right? Because you are paying the amount, the money is withdrawn from the business for the personal use. So there is a case of drawings account, but it was debited to sundry expenses account. Is what it was treated as a business expenses account. So now we have to make the correct entry. It should have been made in the books, right? So entry should be made, the correct entry, that drawings account debit rupees 1000, and because the cash was withdrawn to cash account rupees 1000. And as you see that the wrongly sundry expenses account was considered, right? So sundry expenses account debit, right, was debited rupees 1000 and to cash account, okay, rupees 1000. And now you have to rectify this error, that drawings account debit rupees 1000 to sundry expenses account is 1. So I think you have a good understanding of correcting or rectifying the errors, right? Because in this case, you see that the proprietor's bill were debited wrongly to sundry expenses account, because if there is a case of drawings, it means the cash is withdrawn from the business for the personal use by the proprietor. So there was a particular invoice, or there was a case of the proprietor's bill, so it should be treated as a drawings. And as you see that drawings is to be subtracted from the capital, because it will reduce the cash balance or the bank balance, right? So drawing account debit to cash account, because you are withdrawing the cash for the personal use for the proprietor's bill, and there should be the correct entry that drawings account debit to cash account. But as you see that sundry expenses account was considered at the time of entering in the book, so the transaction was entered as a sundry expenses account debit by 1000 and to cash account rupees 1000. So in order to correct or rectify this entry, you have to post this entry as in this form, that drawings account should be debited and to sundry expenses, because sundry expenses were debited. Now the way is to correct that you have to make this account credited, right? So you have to write in the credit side of sundry expenses rupees 1000. So I think today's session definitely will benefit you will benefit today's session by considering all these transactions, by developing the understanding of how to correct the error, how to rectify the error. So there are three columns you have to make. That first you have to consider the correct entry, then make the wrong entry, right? It means you have to assume that this particular entry was made as per the transaction, and now the third column, that is you have to rectify the entry, right? So first focus that how to what should be the correct entry, and what was the wrong entry which was made. Okay, the error took place. So exactly on the basis of the correct and wrong entry, you have to make the rectified entry. Basically, what happens that when you are considering the errors, so you have to focus on the transaction, that what was the correct transaction, and if you were in place of the accountant, so what did you think that exactly what should be the entry in the books, or what particular accounts should be debited or credited with what amount. But you consider that this entry was wrongly posted in the books of accounting, so you have to make it correct. So exactly what is the way you are not allowed to correct the errors by making any cutting in your books. So there is an option with you that you have to make the debit or credit amount. Okay, it means if something is wrongly debited, so you have to make it credit now, and if something is credited in the books wrongly, so you have to make it debit. And if there is a particular difference that something is entered in axis, so you have to make it in the opposite side, that particular account, right? So by considering these transactions, the different transactions in the books, you can understand, you can develop the understanding of rectification of errors. Okay, so in the next session, definitely we would be covering more transactions, business transactions, which were wrongly entered in the book. So you have to rectify those errors. So thank you very much.